good afternoon. Welcome to Deals R Us.
Do you know that your parking lot is completely full? I had to park way out there.
I'm sorry.
It's freezing.
Well, just grab a cart and start shopping.
Okay. Really?
Yes, that's all we have left.
No adult carts?
No, I'm afraid not.
All right, I'll just grab this bag.
Okay, can I help you find anything?
No, I'm just gonna look.
Okay. Just remember yes?
Oh, I remembered something. I need one of these. This ad came out. The sale?
Yeah.
Yeah, I need that.
I'm afraid we sold out of that already.
You're kidding. This just came out yesterday.
Well, it is Christmas time and people indulge in the joy of shopping.
Not a one left?
No. This item over here, though, is very, very similar. I think you'd like it. What do you think? No?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I guess I'll just get that one thing and go check out.
Okay.
That line sure is long. Oh, yep. People didn't buy so much, maybe it would move. And all that beautiful Christmas music.
Oh, hi. Did you find what you needed?
You again. Great.
Well, I hope you found some nice things.
I don't know. How is it that you are so joyful? You're working for minimum wage. At holidays, you're putting in extra hours, and you have to deal with all the crazy shoppers.
Well, I don't focus on those things. I think of Christmas as celebrating the birth of Jesus, and I think of my shoppers as wanting to celebrate that birth by giving to their loved ones from their heart.
Are you for real?
Yes, I am. Maybe you should come to my church on Christmas Eve, and maybe we can give you your joy back.
Nah, I don't think so. Packed parking lot, packed church, because you know everybody goes that one day a year. Yeah, I don't think so. Thanks anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, dear. Yeah, go on ahead. No, go on home. I'll be there shortly. Yes, in time for dinner. You think I'd miss our son's first party? I just need a moment here to just take it all in. I've waited such a long time for this day. We've all waited such a long time. A son! At my age, who could have imagined it? When we first started telling people a few months back, they all laughed at us. Who wouldn't blame them? A couple old codgers like us having a baby? Well, they're not laughing now. No, they are praising God, as am I. Only the Lord could do such a thing. Holy is his name. But now they're wondering what will become of this child that was born in such an extraordinary way. I'm sorry, you folks must have just gotten here. You missed the ceremony. We just circumcised my son. What's that? No, not my grandson. My son, yeah. And we named him too. John, yeah, strong, virile, a simple name. What? No, there's nobody in our family named John. I know, you're supposed to name your firstborn according to someone in your family. Hey, nothing about this birth has gone according to custom, believe me. I mean, maybe you'd like to hear the story. I know I'd love to tell it. I mean, I'd love to say anything. It's been a year since I've had a word come out of my mouth. But I'm getting ahead of the story here. Let me start at the beginning. As I said, my name is Zechariah. Yeah, That's right. Zechariah means the Lord remembers. As a child growing up, I was so proud of that name. I mean, who wouldn't want a name that the Lord remembers them, that he shows favor on them? But as time went on, that name became a burden to me, an embarrassment to me, a stumbling block to my faith. I mean, what kind of a name is that for a man whose wife never bears him any children? What kind of a name is that for a priest who's never been chosen to enter into the holy place? It didn't start that way. Our lives, they began with such hope and promise. I was born into the priestly tribe of Aaron, set aside from birth to serve in the temple. I took that calling seriously. As a young person, I studied hard and kept all the commands. Even as a youth, I knew that when my time came to serve, I would be ready. And my wife, Elizabeth, she too was full of dreams, of a house full of children, raising the next generation of priests, like her mother before her, and her mother before her, all the way back to Moses and Aaron. What hopes we had back then as we began. What dreams. A godly wife, a holy calling, a bright future. Surely the Lord remembered me. But as time went on, those hopes, well, they never came to be. I am one of 18,000 priests in Jerusalem today, part of a division that is on duty twice a year in Jerusalem. For 7 days, our division offers sacrifice twice a day, morning and evening. Each time, one name is chosen to go into the holy place to offer the offering. It is a great responsibility and a holy calling. At the appointed hour, the priest enters the holy place, accompanied by two others, one bearing live coals, the other the incense. As the priest approaches the altar, he takes the live coals from his first assistant and spreads them over the altar. The other hands him the incense. And then the two of them back out, careful to not trip and to never turn their back on the altar. And then the priest takes the incense and placing it on the altar, he says a prayer that has been said by our people for hundreds of years by thousands of priests. May the merciful God enter this holy place and receive with favor the prayers of his people. Oh, what a moment that would be. To be that close to the Almighty himself who lies just beyond the curtain in the Holy of Holies, to represent the entire nation at that moment alone there before God, to invoke his blessing and his favor for everyone that was involved. When that time came for me, I would be ready for it. But that time never came. Year after year, I came to Jerusalem. Week after week, I waited for my name to be called. It was never called. After a while, it got embarrassing. I mean, everybody noticed. How could you not notice? Other names were called, younger names were called. Forgive me for saying so, but lesser names were called. Why wasn't I called? I know that the choosing is by lot, but surely God oversees the choosing. Why had he not chosen me? Was there some defect in my character or in my faith that prevented me? After years of disappointment, I'm ashamed to say that I just gave up hope of ever being called. And in time, I learned to accept that. Maybe I was just meant to be one other obscure priest of all the 18,000. The Almighty doesn't owe me an explanation for his ways. So I learned to accept the disappointment. But you know what was harder to accept? Elizabeth's barrenness. All those children we thought would populate our home, they never came. Just silence and quiet, an empty place. Poor Elizabeth. As much as I sensed the calling to be a priest, she sensed the calling to raise these children for the next generation of priests. But they never came. It wasn't just the disappointment. It was deeper than that. It was the shame of it all. I mean, you know how people are. You walking down the street together and people are whispering. There must be something wrong with the two of them. God must not be pleased with them. Some secret sin in their life. Why was God not pleased with us? We had been as devout and faithful as can be. When we were first married, everyone in town said, of all the people in this village, if anyone deserves a household full of children, it's those two, Elizabeth and Zechariah. Everyone said that. Everyone. Everyone, it seemed, except God. It was a disappointment. I didn't take it very well. I won't say that I got bitter. That's too strong. I guess I just lowered my expectations of the whole thing. Maybe God isn't like I'd always thought as a young person, with all that youthful exuberance I'd had. Maybe he's not intimately involved in each person's life. Maybe he doesn't choose individuals to do his work. Maybe it's just foolishness to think he would have his eyes on one old priest. But Elizabeth, she saw it differently. She was convinced that God had something in store for us. If not children, then some other purpose in mind. And so she continued to hope. She continued to believe. She continued to pray. Well, I pray too. I'm a priest. I'm paid to pray, right? It's just that I wasn't sure anybody was listening. Ends up I wasn't the only one that was wondering if the Almighty was listening. Many in Jerusalem were beginning to wonder if God had not forgotten us. Forgotten the promises he had made so long ago to Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. Promises that said he would bless us and use us to be a blessing to the world. Promises that Isaiah had made of a child being born who would be the healer, the redeemer, the one who would save his people and usher in a new day. Where was that healer? Where was that person that was to come and redeem? I mean, for 500 years now, we'd seen only occupation by the world powers all around us. First the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Greeks, now the Romans. They occupied our land. They exploited us with their taxes. They blasphemed our God. They ridiculed our faith. Did God not see this? Did he not hear our prayers? Is it any wonder that we began to wonder, had he really remembered us? No signs of his presence, no prophets. For 400 years, no miracles, no child, no evidence of his going in his presence. What's that? Is that you, Reuben? The guests are starting to arrive at the house? Yeah, I will be there presently. Tell Elizabeth I'll be there in just a few moments. These folks want to hear the rest of the story, I suspect. So just give me a few more minutes. I know, yeah. My wife, she's patient with God, not so much with me. Anyway, it was about a year ago that strange things began to happen. Our division was on duty at the temple. One afternoon, we were in the temple courts when someone nudged me in the side, elbowing me in the ribs, saying, "Zechariah, it's you. They called your name." Well, I must tell you, I'd long since even stopped listening for my name. But sure enough, they had called me. I was to be the one that would enter that holy place the following day. I went home filled with a sense of excitement. Bless Elizabeth, she was more excited than I was. She took my priestly robe and checked every seam and every stitch. No loose strings were permitted in that holy place. No blemishes at all. And I spent the evening as well preparing that prayer that I was to give as well, making sure that I got every word just right, every syllable given with all the faith and reverence that I could muster. Well, that would be the hard part, the faith. See, over the years, that passion that I'd had as a youth had just slowly degraded to these coals that were just barely glowing in my soul. But I would bring all that I was and could to that moment and trusted it was acceptable to the Lord. Well, the next morning, my wife Elizabeth accompanied me to the temple along with a lot of other close friends as well. They knew what this moment meant for a priestly family. At the appointed hour, I approach that holy place, accompanied by my two assistants. And I just paused for a moment to take it all in. And then I stepped into the threshold, over the threshold. It took a moment for our eyes to get adjusted to the darkness. There's light in that room, that holy place, the candelabra, the lampstand, but that's all the light there is. And then we went quickly to work. My one assistant gave me the live coals, which I spread over the altar. The other, the incense that I took. And then the two of them backed out. And there I was, alone in this holy of holy places, as close to God as I would ever be. But one does not linger at this moment. Every moment staying too long increases the likelihood of some impure thought, some irreverent word being spoken. So I quickly went about my task, taking the incense, placing it on the altar, and with a whoosh, smoke filled the air, the fragrance, my nostrils. And as the smoke rose, I sensed my prayers going heavenward. And that's when I heard it. Zechariah, as clear as that. Zechariah. I had been waiting for years for that name of mine to be called. Not now, though, not here. I turned around, but there was no one else in the room with me. I thought maybe they were shouting at me from the courtyard. But then I noticed a presence beginning to appear next to the lampstand. Zechariah, the presence said, your prayer has been heard. My prayer? What prayer? The prayer that I just offered for invoking the presence of God in this space? The prayer every priest prays each day when they're in here? Does this happen every day? Why had nobody told me that? Your prayer has been heard. Your wife, Elizabeth, will bear a son. You are to give him the name John, and he will be a joy and a delight to you. That prayer? After all these years? Many in Israel will delight in his coming, and he will come in the spirit of Elijah, preparing the people for the coming of the Lord. A baby? We were going to have a baby at our age? And then I did something very, very foolish. I questioned the angel. I know. What kind of fool questions an angel? An old fool. How can this be? I said. I mean, I'm an old man. My wife, she's an old woman. I am Gabriel, the presence said sternly. I'm standing in the presence of God even now. But because you will not believe his words, neither will you be able to speak your own until all of these things have come to pass. And then he was gone as fast as he has been there. And I was alone in that holy space again. I became aware of how long I'd been there. I quickly finished up. People would be wondering what had taken so long. I stepped carefully back out again. And then as I turned to the courtyard, every eye was on me, staring at me, demanding some word of explanation for what had happened in there. I had no word. I had no voice. Even if I'd had a voice, I'm not sure I could have explained what had happened anyway. I saw Elizabeth in the crowd, and our eyes met, and I could tell she knew something had happened. On the way home, I debated whether to tell her. I really needed to tell her, right? It involves her a little bit, doesn't it? But how would she take it? Would she believe this extraordinary story? Or would she just think it was some cruel joke on an old woman's barrenness? But I knew I had to tell her. And so that night after dinner, I sat her down, and as best I could, without a voice, I tried to explain. An angel. I nodded furiously. Our prayer has been heard. Yes. I'm going to what? You and me? And she burst into laughter. I wish I could have laughed too. I couldn't. Not just because I didn't have a voice, but just as much because I still wasn't sure. Well, a few days later, I came home to find her standing in the doorway, and she was smiling at me. Not just smiling, glowing. And then she bursts into laughter. And that's when I knew it was true. It was true. We were going to have a baby. And I couldn't laugh, but at least I eked out a smile. Maybe the Lord had indeed remembered us after all. Well, the next few weeks, Elizabeth stayed at home most of the time, as was the custom for someone expecting a child. But I continued to go about my work. I got the strangest looks from people on the street. My colleagues kept ribbing me. Way to go, Zechariah. We didn't know you had it in you anymore. I couldn't explain it. Wouldn't know what I would have told them anyway. It's probably just as well I couldn't speak, because it gave me time to think about what that angel had said. How this son of ours would be a prophet after the prophet Elijah. Years ago, when we had prayed for a child, we had always prayed that God would do something great through them. But a prophet like Elijah? Who could dream that could be an answer to our long, long prayer of so long ago? And then another thing that the angel had said, that this one would come to prepare the way for the Lord. Maybe it was true then. Maybe this one was about to come to prepare the coming of the Messiah. Well, as I said, I couldn't say any of these things, so I kept them to myself. But just about the time I thought things couldn't get any stranger, they actually did. Mary, one of Elizabeth's relatives, showed up at our door. She had traveled 3 days from Nazareth to get there. Mary was a fine woman and engaged to a fine man. And she had other news. She too was expecting a child. And if you think our story is extraordinary, you should hear hers. But an angel had come to her as well. What's that? Yes, she was wise enough not to question the angel. Thank you for pointing that out, by the way. The angel had said that she would bear a child and he would be the Son of the Most High. And that he would reign on the throne of his father David forever. And that his kingdom would have no end. And so it was true. God was preparing to act. He was about to bring about the deliverer. And my son, our son, was going to prepare the way. And so when that angel had said, "Your prayer has been heard," it wasn't just our prayer for a child. It was our prayer as a nation for for deliverance, for favor. Of course, that's what the name John means. The Lord shows favor. And so all those years that we thought God had forgotten us, he was just preparing us, waiting for the perfect time to bring about his purposes. There was a whole lot more going on here than the two of us having a baby. We were part of a bigger plan, a grander design for what God was about to do. God had heard our prayers, and he had answered them. But not in the way we'd expected, not in the time or the places. Why had he waited so long? I don't know. Why had we been chosen among all the other childless couples in Israel? I don't know that either. All I know is that God is always at work in the lives of his people. That his ways are always good. His purpose is always true, even when we can't understand them. And I learned something else. That with God, it is just never too late to be surprised by his hope. Well, the last few days went quickly, really. Mary stayed, and she was a great help to Elizabeth until Elizabeth delivered. And finally that child came. Just 8 days ago now. Yeah. And we just finished just a few moments ago circumcising him and naming him. And that was the fun part, the naming. It was a little secret between Elizabeth and I. Everybody expected that we were going to name the child after me. But then they came to Elizabeth and in the ceremony asked for the name. And she confused everyone with what she said. They came running to me, shouting, screaming into my ear, as if just because I can't speak, I can't hear. Calmly, I wrote on a tablet. His name is John. And with that, I laughed out loud. And laughed for real, because my voice was back. And Elizabeth laughed with me. We laughed together. The laugh of joy, the laugh of faith, the laugh of knowing it was true. It was true. God had remembered. He had remembered his people. He had remembered his promises. And he had remembered me. He had remembered me, an old priest who just wanted to do something faithful for God.